Well, Feed the Birds has been something during the pandemic for us to look forward to each week. Graham enjoys Alexi's visits and enjoys going out into the garden, don't you?
It's always nice to see the birds in the garden, and I think having the feeders has helped. As I say, sometimes you have quite a number of birds almost fighting to get onto the feeders.
Well, yes, I think it's a good thing. You know, well, it's not a good thing, it's a wonderful thing for me, because without it, I don't know what I'd do.
The idea for Feed the Birds wasn't mine, it was my mother's idea, my late mother. She had a lot of elderly people in her street and people who were socially isolated, and she felt a need to connect with them and to look after them and just see how they were doing. So she told me about her idea that she could put together volunteers. Wouldn't it be great to put volunteers together with isolated people and help them and get them to help each other, really.
I've been involved in Feed the Birds right from the beginning when we first piloted it back in 2016, and in the last 2 years I've been running the project, which was funded by National Lottery Community Fund. So on my own, delivering the project, that included taking all the referrals for clients and visiting them to make an assessment, recruiting volunteers and organising training, and then supporting the volunteers through that matching process with the client who lives nearby in their community. And on the first visit we would set up a bird feeder for them and obviously introduce them to the client, and then from then on really it was weekly visits by the volunteer to their client, and myself just supporting them in the background really. The clients come from a range of referral sources, so often it's GPs or community and care coordinators, the memory team, different teams as part of Shropshire Council's adult services, and they come with a whole range of issues and difficulties, not all age related but predominantly to do with age. So we've got clients with dementia, clients with Huntington's disease, clients with Parkinson's, COPD and mobility problems and sensory impairments, like one client is profoundly deaf and other clients with visual impairments and so on. And the referral numbers to date are about 120. So one client we have was referred to us through having a memory issue, so difficulty in, not a dementia diagnosis as such, but memory issues. And his wife has now become his main carer, so she has to be with him all the time. The COVID pandemic really impacted very badly on them, because although his wife was caring for him most of the time, he was helping her with the whole raft of community initiatives that they were involved with. COVID hit them, which meant all that was curtailed, and so the two of them were then stuck in their home on their own, and I think the main impact really was on his wife, the carer. And so we introduced a lovely volunteer to them a few months ago, and it has really worked very, very nicely. The wife has a bit of respite, so she gets a little bit of a break when the volunteer's there. The client has really started to engage a lot more again with the natural world, and he's has a very nice relationship with the volunteer. They laugh a lot together and compare what they've seen in the garden, not just birds but butterflies and other insects and so on. And the other nice thing that's emerged from that relationship is the volunteer has 2 young children. The client and his wife have grandchildren, and that means a very nice intergenerational connection there between the children, the grandchildren, the volunteer and the client and his wife.
I was a biology teacher, and Graham, what did you do? Graham was an economics and business studies teacher in Wolverhampton. With all the things that happened and during the last 18 months, we've become, I suppose, more aware of the need to feed the birds and to look out for the insects, and once a week we can rely on meeting somebody else. Alexi comes and they fill up the bird feeders and do lots of other things and have conversations, and gives you something to look forward to, doesn't it?
Yes,
What do you enjoy about Alexi's visits?
I enjoy it.
Why do you enjoy it?
It's something to look toward, isn't it?
And what do you do when Alexi comes?
Well, we've got all the feeders out, don't we?
Mm.
One of our clients is an elderly gentleman, widowed, very sadly lost both of his adult children too, and living in a house that's quite a difficult house for somebody with mobility issues, but he's determined to stay in his home. And we introduced a volunteer. It's taken a little while for that relationship to develop, but I was very pleased to hear from the volunteer that this client has now re-engaged with his grandchildren around bird feeding. Grandchildren bring fat balls and fill up the fat ball feeder for him, and it's really brought a bit of joy into that man's life.
Well, my name's Mervyn. I used to work for Telford Development Corporation as a resident reclamation engineer. Well, since my wife died, I welcome any visitors. My family come to see me. I'm very appreciative of it, because otherwise I live alone.
My name's Jonathan. Before I retired a couple of years ago, I used to be a human resources director. Well, I think like any sort of new friendship, we weren't too sure about each other. We didn't really know much about each other at the beginning. It wasn't difficult, but it took a bit of time to get to know each other, and we did that just by talking about the past.
We managed to find topics of common interest.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Mervyn looks forward to me visiting. I hope he does.
Indeed.
And I don't stay for very long. I stay for an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. But we usually have things to talk about for most of that hour. And if we don't, we'll watch the tennis on television or the Olympics and talk about that. We also do the crossword together. Well, we don't do the crossword together, that's wrong.
I do.
Mervyn does most of the crossword, and I help him out at the end.
You usually fill in the ones I can't get. I'm well able to occupy myself because I've been alone so long. But a little bit of company now and again is very, very welcome.
So this client is a gentleman who lives on his own, no family, and very little support really. Does have a carer coming in, and we introduced a lovely volunteer. My volunteer Jenny visits him, and they've really developed a very nice friendship and a relationship around bird feeding, and they talk about books they've read and literature and art, and they've really found a kind of common ground, which has brought a lot of joy to this gentleman's life. He has mobility issues, which means he cannot get out of his home. And the most recent thing I heard from the volunteer, which is a lovely story, is that the carer is now filling up the feeder as well for him, and she has brought one for her father, who's also elderly, and so the whole Feed the Birds idea is spreading wider, which is really wonderful.
So we get the tree sparrows.
Yes.
We get
Blue tits,
and the
wrens,
house sparrows.
house sparrows.
Yeah. How many? What's the sort of most you think you've seen on? You said to me a few weeks back, an amazing number.
17.
Yes. Yeah.
4 or 5 on the big feeder.
Yeah.
2 on the small feeder.
Yes.
About 4 on the fat
On the
balls. And then 2 or 3 over the top as well. So
yeah.
I'm used to counting them because
Yes.
it helps me watch them and get into their habits, what they do when they fly to the hedge and the one starts to come back and then the others come back all together.
Yeah. So they really do communicate.
Oh yes,
What's
they do.
going on?
Yes. Well, I loved birds when I was young.
Yes.
I then got into other things and working and different ways of life.
Yeah.
I sort of forgot there was birds until I came here, and it's all coming back what I was interested in when I was this age.
Yes.
What I enjoy with the birds so much is their behaviour.
That's right. Yeah.
Without that feeder, I wouldn't know how birds behaved because you wouldn't see them long enough.
That's right.
But that gives me a sort of focus where I can watch them come there and I know why they're doing this and why they're doing that. They're flying away quick and all that.
Yes.
And they have I found out they have a lookout.
Yes, I remember.
There's a leader of the pack who comes on the top. And that's when they all come to feed. He's saying, oh, everything's all right, it's safe for you. The only people I see are medical people, blood test lady, doctor, coronavirus jab, that sort of thing. So seeing somebody of completely different background and interest is wonderful.
So
it brings another program like you've got my TV10 or something like that. It brings that into my life.
It's a different focus.
Yes, wonderful.
There are a lot of people who want to do something positive for the environment, want to do something positive for their community, and like volunteering, and people get a lot of joy from volunteering. And at the same time, there's an epidemic of social isolation. There's so many lonely people, and there's so many people who actually physically can't get out of the house at all. And to put these two groups together in a way that also benefits wildlife and doesn't treat the person who is having the bird feeder as a victim. So it's allowing them to form this really useful relationship based on a common joy of watching birds, and it's making the person who's getting the bird feeder feel like they're a useful part of society again, rather than just being this isolated person. And I feel that's one of the key things of this project, is that it opens that door. It's not treating them as a victim. It's saying, can you help us? Can you help us as a wildlife trust to feed the birds, and sometimes to record what they've seen as well. So I think that's one of the real benefits of this, and it's accessing people in a way that I think a lot of the sort of medical services and support services can't really do at the moment.
One of the strengths of the project is that the clients, although are referred to us through having a health or an age-related condition, the beauty of it is that the volunteers are visiting them not about their condition or about a medical issue or about prescriptions or meals or anything like that. They're visiting them as a fellow human being with an interest in nature, and it's very touching to see how much of a difference that makes to the clients, that someone's listening to them and interested to hear about their history and their past.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that this project should be continued and expanded, and I've often talked about how it could be expanded to things like looking at other wildlife in the garden, hedgehog homes or whatever, bee homes, all sorts of things, because people absolutely thrive on that contact with nature, even if it's just looking through their window at it. And to have somebody who's keen to come in and help them refilm the feeder and bring that extra social contact, because that's what people like, isn't it? Social contact with nature. These are things that are well known now to be very good for your overall mental health and well-being, and that's such a key thing at the moment, isn't it, in times of stress.
It's something for Graham to look forward to every week. He looks forward to the visits, to Alexi's visits every week, and it's given me a little bit of time to myself as well.
Since I've started doing the Feed the Birds, Graham has really warmed to me. I think he definitely remembers me now, because he does have memory problems, so I think each time I come, I think he definitely remembers me now, and we've got quite a relationship where we have a little bit of a laugh now. So he'll pull funny faces. If Sue asks him to do something, he'll pull a funny face at me, and yeah, I think it's really been positive on Graham.
I think my mother would be absolutely thrilled that this project had got going. She had loads of great ideas for projects all her life. I think the fact that this has taken off in such a great way and reached so many people and changed their lives, she would be absolutely thrilled to bits. It touches so many people's lives. I mean, the numbers involved in this project locally have been staggering, really. And it's a lasting legacy. People have actually rekindled some of their passion for wildlife and engagement with the natural environment. And that's not just the people involved directly, but it's their family as well, who see how they have improved, and how they've actually cheered up and have a real new passion and can talk about how all the birds they've seen and who's been to visit and what they've talked about. And it's just really exciting, and I'm so glad to have been part of it, really. And it wasn't really me, but it was my mother, so it's really touching that you know, she's had that impact.
Well, I get quite a lot of satisfaction out of it. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it, not just quite a lot. I mean, it's nice to come and see Mervyn and talk about his life experiences and things in the past, and sometimes to help him you know, with his eyesight problems and things like that. And just know that I'm somebody else who's visiting him, because he is alone a lot, aren't you?
Yes.
And I think it's important that particularly people who are slightly less mobile than others have visitors.
I think the COVID pandemic has really affected a lot of people that won't get that conversation, won't get that ability to go out, so they needed somebody to come in and just talk. I think that's what people have needed during the COVID pandemic, is just somebody coming in and talk, a fresh face.
I think it should grow, because I think something like this is really important. You know, particularly during lockdown and COVID, where a lot of people have been isolated. This has been a way of, again, keeping people connected with, sometimes with the outside world. So yeah, I think it's very important.
Out of my visits, I feel that I get self-worth. I feel I get a lot of confidence as well from coming here and encouraging Graham. I feel very happy coming here.
Once he said to me, if you had to do that one thing, television or the bird feed, I said, you take television.
Take the television away.
So I spend more time than, well, I would think in all, I spend 2 hours a day, every day, watching the birds.